Chapter 791. Unstoppable Life-Chasing Fire. Immortal Killer Move. Life-Chasing Fire. Old Lord Kenyang looked solemn as he slowly opened up his hand, revealing a weak flame. The faint yellow flame swayed, appearing dim and weak, as if it would extinguish at any moment. Old Lord Kenyang's pupils, however, let out a sharp and bright radiance, and as he gazed at this flame in his hand, a proud expression appeared on his face. This was the supreme technique which he had used to make his name and shake Central Continent. Life-Chasing Fire, go. Old Lord Kenyang lightly shook his palm. The life-chasing fire made a whooshing sound as it shot out rapidly. The starwell quickly opened up a path. The unremarkable-looking life-chasing fire moved out of the blood veil and pierced into the cold iceberg. Boom. Almost at the same instant, there was a large yellow flame that blazed to the sky and burned the whole iceberg. Almost all the demonic Pathgu immortals in the air were taken aback at this change. Soon, they revealed odd expressions. The reason was, although the fire was fierce, it had no heat. The iceberg covered in the fire was completely undamaged with no signs of melting down. Some demonic Pathgu immortals were just about to ridicule it, when the rank 7 demonic Pathgu immortal, Pai Shui Han, suddenly let out a miserable scream. Everyone followed the voice and saw a sight that gave them a great shock. Pai Shui Han was covered in fire, of such intensity that his whole face twisted in pain. Great amounts of cold air were being let off from his body, and a river of water started flowing around him, like a dragon coiling around his body. The faint yellow fire, however, did not weaken, instead looking like it was growing even fiercer. What move is this? How did Pai Shui Han get attacked? Why didn't I see it? Such a strange fire, everyone evaded. The demonic Pathgu immortals retreated one after the other, while looking with lingering fear at Pai Shui Han exerting all his efforts to extinguish the fire. This fire, could it be life-chasing fire? Not good. Fang Yuan's mind was shaken as he realized something amiss, and quickly withdrew the 8 strength path giant hands. But it was already too late. The fire burned the iceberg and quickly had spread to the 8 strength path giant hands. The strength path giant hands were completely unharmed, but a faint flame had emerged out of thin air in Fang Yuan's immortal aperture, quietly burning his 160,000 strength path phantoms. These strength path phantoms had their arms raised. They had been providing the strength to form the 8 strength path giant hands in the outside world. They were bathed in the fire, but were completely safe. Fang Yuan's heart shivered at this sight. This is truly that killer move, life-chasing fire. Fang Yuan was aware of the terrifying power of this move. He quickly made a decision and willed. The 160,000 strength path phantoms collapsed. Without these strength path phantoms, the 8 strength path giant hands pulling the iceberg also crumbled apart. Boom. The ruined bat's corpse mountain heavily fell down, producing a huge tremor. The surrounding ground cracked and countless stones were splattered, leaving dust swirling everywhere. Fang Yuan suffered an intense backlash from forcibly halting use of pulling mountain. He felt intense dizziness and nausea. His body shook and he almost fell down from the air. He Lulan saw this and quickly moved to support him. Fang Yuan, however, evaded and shouted, "Don't approach me." He quickly retreated backwards. A faint yellow flame started to burn his body like Pai Shui Han. At the same time, Unfettered Scholar turned pale. He was also struck by this move, and his body was similarly burning in fire. This Fire Path Immortal Killer move can actually detect auras and follow our attacks back to the source, directly reaching our immortal apertures. Unfettered Scholar was greatly shocked. Unfettered Scholar realized at this moment why Pai Shui Han was in a panic. Not only were their bodies burning, the fire was spreading in their immortal apertures as well. The former was okay, but the latter was a Gu Immortals' headquarters, their foundation that had been managed meticulously for countless years, and also where innumerable cultivation resources had been stored inside. Now that this foundation was being burned, it was like the fire was burning directly at the Gu Immortals' heart. Make them bleed from the heartache. Pai Shui Han not only was extinguishing the fire on his body, he was even more importantly putting out the fire in his immortal aperture. But the strange thing was, this fire could not be extinguished by water or ice. The surrounding demonic Pathgu immortals started to move away from Fang Yuan, Unfettered Scholar, and Pai Shui Han, fearing this strange fire would spread to them as well. Why are the flames on Fang Yuan weaker than the other two? He Lulan was bewildered. The remaining Gu immortals soon discovered this difference. Immediately, Fang Yuan looked even more unfathomable to everyone. Unfettered Scholar's gaze also paused on Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's situation was much better than the other two. There was only a thin layer of flames on him, as if they were the fires of an oil lamp, while the flames on Pai Shui Han and Unfettered Scholar were blazing like a torch. In just a few breaths of time, Unfettered Scholar's body was already mostly burnt and started to emit the smell of burning meat. Unfettered Scholar himself was calm and not particularly panicked. The reason was that he still had a trump card, Immortal Killer Move. 1,000 Disintegrations. He wildly activated the killer move. The light in his white pupils turned even more vigorous, but this time, the light did not shine on the iceberg and the blood veil. Instead, it shined on himself, on his immortal aperture. The faint yellow flame started to disintegrate continuously under the white light, weakening rapidly. Soon, the flames on his body completely dispersed, and the fire in his immortal aperture was also suppressed. 1,000 disintegrations was very useful. It could not only be used to attack enemies, but could also be used for defense, offense, and defense in one move, and its power was also extraordinary. In a short while, Fang Yuan also stood up. The fire on his body completely dissipated. Only Pai Shui Han was still trying out all sorts of methods, but the flames on him were instead burning even more. His whole body was darkened from burns. The intense odor of burnt meat was spreading everywhere. He had no choice but to activate Healing Goo to heal his injuries and also endure the burning of the fire. He shouted furiously. He felt pain not only physically, but also heartache mentally. The fire was spreading in his immortal aperture. Large amounts of resources were being burned to nothingness, but he still had no way to put out this fire. What to do? What to do? Pai Shui Han thought rapidly in extreme anxiety. Fang Yuan and Unfettered Scholar just watched on coldly and silently. The remaining demonic Pathgu immortals stood further away. Some gazes were flickering, eager to make some trouble. If Pai Shui Han were to be seriously injured and weakened, these demonic Pathgu immortals would absolutely be moved and interested in attacking Pai Shui Han, adding on to his misfortune. Suddenly, Pai Shui Han gave a loud shout before soaring high, and with his whole body in flames, he shot far away like a meteor. This fire was giving him enormous trouble, and there were many demonic Pathgu immortals present. He could not stick around. Pai Shui Han's retreat was a wise choice. Seeing him rapidly disappear into the horizon, several demonic Pathgu immortals at the periphery also stealthily left, following the trail of Pai Shui Han. In the hall, Old Lord Qin Yang laughed heartily, saying to Dong Fang Chongfan Starwill, "How was that? Truly worthy of being called life-chasing fire." The Starwill nodded. This fire has the ability to trace auras back to their source. Goo immortals normally place goo worms in their immortal apertures, thus this fire would burn their immortal apertures. This fire also uses life as the fuel. As long as life has not been extinguished, it will keep on burning. Thus, special methods must be used to extinguish this fire, like the technique of 1,000 disintegrations. If one doesn't have such methods, then they have to be resolute in cutting off the burning part, restraining it from burning sources of life force within their body as much as possible. As long as the life force is used up, this fire will disperse. Unfortunately, this Pai Shui Han did not think of this point and continuously healed himself, which increased his life force, increasing the intensity of the fire. The Starwill chuckled as it said this, and praised, "Old Lord Qin Yang, your move is a truly unique and innovative method. As long as this fire strikes the enemy, they will fall into chaos. If it is allowed to keep on burning, even the wealthier goo immortals will have their foundations greatly damaged and have no battle intent." Listening to the Starwill praise his method so much, Old Lord Qin Yang's pleased expression instead disappeared and was replaced by a gloomy look. The reason for Old Lord Qin Yang's fame was the killer move life-chasing fire. Once this fire burned, even if it was eliminated, the enemy would be low in spirits. If they attacked, the fire could follow the attack and burn their immortal aperture. Immortal apertures were the foundations of goo immortals, and it would be greatly damaged if it was burned a few times. Even if the fire did not burn the enemy to death, it could ruin them. Thus, Old Lord Qin Yang had already been able to roam unhindered around Central Continent in his early years and was very well known. Goo immortals fighting him would have a headache. After becoming rank 7, Old Lord Qin Yang did not wander around much, but just based on his battle strength, he was in the top 5 of Immortal Crane sect. The matter of 88 true young buildings collapse was simply too important, so Immortal Crane sect had sent him to Northern Plains to investigate the culprit. Once life-chasing fire was used, it restrained Fang Yuan and Unfettered Scholar, and caused Pai Shui Han to retreat in a miserable state. Old Lord Qin Yang was repelling the enemies on the surface, but was covertly also trying to intimidate Dongfang Changfan. However, Dongfang Changfan was aware of the details of life-chasing fire. His words were appreciative, but in truth were a counterattack against Old Lord Kenyang. If Old Lord Kenyang could still show a good expression, that would be strange. Life-chasing fire. Old Lord Kenyang. Why is he here? Fang Yuan hovered in the air, looking at the blood veil below in uncertainty and doubt. He might have his previous life's memories, but there was an extremely large difference between having them and being all-knowing and omnipotent. Dongfang Changfan's possession scheme was kept in extreme secrecy, and Fang Yuan was not aware of it. Now that he saw a central continent Gu immortal mixed up with Dongfang Changfan's inheritance, he naturally felt surprised and bewildered. When Old Lord Kenyang repelled him, he had done so evasively and had not revealed his identity at all. Old Lord Kenyang had methods to conceal his aura, and with them being used, his aura was the same as a Northern Plains Gu immortals. The other demonic path Gu immortals did not discover anything wrong, which showed how ingenious Old Lord Kenyang's methods were. Not good. Fang Yuan inwardly shouted. Thoughts of retreating rose up inside him. He knew Central Continent's forces had secretly infiltrated into Northern Plains to search for him, the culprit. He also knew someone had gone to Northern Plains' zombie alliance with suspicions about his Sha Huang identity. The reason I could resolve life-chasing fire was because I knew the details of this move and made the decision quickly. And as an immortal zombie, I am among the living dead. My immortal aperture is a dead land with sparse life force, thus it could not be burned. Old Lord Kenyang has plenty of experience. He might have already discerned that I am an immortal zombie. Hiding myself like this, perhaps he might become suspicious. The more Fang Yuan thought, the heavier his state of mind. Chapter 792. Lightning of Heaven and Earth. Risky Attempt. As far as Fang Yuan was concerned, a wisdom path inheritance was indeed precious and rare. But even if he gained a complete inheritance, risking his true identity in the pursuit of Northern Plains Gu immortals was absolutely not worth it. Old Lord Kenyang had restrained the group of demons with one burst of fire, and even sent Pai Shui Han retreating far away. Fang Yuan had realized the bad situation and also was considering retreating, thus he naturally stopped his attacks. The rank 7 unfettered scholar also did not risk attacking. He thought higher of Fang Yuan from the way he dealt with the life-chasing fire. He himself had to rely on 1,000 disintegrations to get through that danger, which made him feel Fang Yuan was even more mysterious. And besides Fang Yuan, there was still the 2 black-robed Gu immortals, He Lu Lan and Fairy Li Shan. Thus unfettered scholar restrained his desire to make a move and only observed Fang Yuan's side. His thoughts were obvious. He was waiting for Fang Yuan's side to make a move. For a while, the surroundings above the ruined bat's corpse became silent, while inside the ruined hall, curses were still being endlessly hurled out. Dongfang tribe's 8 Gu immortals could not budge even a bit but had retained the ability to speak. Since the moment Dongfang Changfan's possession had begun, they had been throwing curses and shouting at Dongfang Changfan. Dongfang Changfan's star will turn a deaf ear to this. He saw the situation outside had quietened down. The group of demons would be restrained for a while. He smiled. Finally, the time is ripe. My possession and rebirth will start at this moment. Old Lord Kenyang, I have explained the previous main steps to you. The crucial time has arrived. I will have to trouble you to guard me. Being indecisive when a decision was needed would instead worsen the situation. The star will made the decision and did not hesitate any longer. A change occurred. A large vortex suddenly formed on the surface of the blood veil. Blood energy started fermenting in the vortex. It condensed into form before suddenly bursting out. It turned into a giant blood pillar that directly shot straight down to the center of the phantom formation, covering Dongfang Yuliang's body. Old Lord Kenyang's eyes opened wide, and he shouted, "Damn it." Old Lord Kenyang understood after seeing this change. This blood veil was not used just to defend, but was also involved in a purification process. The extracted 8 immortal aperture origin cores were like 8 metals melting together. It then used the demonic path Gu immortals' attacks to temper the melted origin cores, eliminating the wills and auras of the 8 Gu immortals, before pouring the fused product into the possession target. Dongfang Changfan had arranged the situation exquisitely, calculating the demonic path Gu immortals within his plan. Even Fang Yuan was in the dark, used by Dongfang Changfan into unknowingly becoming a blacksmith. Now, the blood energy flowed backwards, filling Dongfang Yuliang's body. Naturally, the blood veil would weaken. With the weakening of the blood veil, the defense immediately fell. Old Lord Kenyang had a heavy duty from the sect, and with enormous benefits in front of him, how could he stay still and not share the burden? Seeing the blood veil weakening, the demonic path to immortals indeed were moved. It seems the previous attacks were effective. There is hope in breaking the blood veil. Everyone attacked together. The Gu immortals attacked one after the other. Countless attacks rained down like a violent storm. The blood veil was sending the blood energy inside, while also having to endure the attacks. Immediately, it was strained and started to sway unstably. Old Lord Kenyang had no choice but to take action, using an immortal killer move. Final afterglow, a light barrier emerged outside of the blood veil. It looked to be condensed from the afterglow of the setting sun, and was so thin and faint that it was almost like there was nothing. Countless attacks passed through this light barrier and landed on the blood veil. However, their power was reduced to less than half the original. This was the use of final afterglow. It was not a complete defense. Instead, it weakened the power of most attacks. Even immortal killer moves on the level of Flood Glacier would be weakened by 30%. And what the demonic Pathgu immortals were using right now were mostly all mortal killer moves. After being weakened by final afterglow, they only appeared strong but had little threat. Dongfang Changfan showed a joyous expression. The situation was extremely beneficial to him in this way. The Phantom Formation was constantly extracting the 8 immortal aperture origin cores and fusing them to create the blood veil. When the blood veil suffered the attacks, the foreign wills and auras hidden inside the origin cores were gradually being removed. Afterwards, the purified blood energy would then pour into Dongfang Yuliang's body. Dongfang Yuliang was a Gu master with a rank 5 peak stage aperture. Right now, his soul was already eliminated by Dongfang Changfan, leaving him in control of his young body. Dongfang Changfan's attention was fully focused on the aperture. The aperture burst with a loud sound as it was filled with blood energy. Dongfang Yuliang's aura rose higher instead of shrinking. An astonishing transformation was occurring, surpassing mortal. Charging to Gu immortal, crack. In the clear sky outside, a lightning bolt flashed. Within several breaths later, dark clouds surged and spread over the entire surroundings in the clear sky. Earth tremored and rumbled, and vast amounts of dust surged, as if countless bulls were running on the ground. Heaven and earth chi were stirred. A heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity were forming. Someone is actually ascending to immortal inside? What is going on? The Gu immortals quickly stopped their attacks, feeling baffled. Crack, crack, crack. Rays of lightning struck down together from above. The power they contained shocked the demonic path Gu immortals into hurriedly retreating. Amazing. This is the heavenly star lightning tribulation. How unlucky is the mortal to not receive the favor of heaven and earth. He is just ascending to immortal, and is met with such a powerful heavenly tribulation. What earthly calamity is this? The Gu immortals retreated to the edges and observed. Countless round craters appeared in the surroundings of the ruined bat's corpse. The craters were pitch black and unfathomably deep. Bang, bang, bang. Balls of pitch black lightning shot out from the craters and impacted on the ruined bat's corpse mountain, creating loud explosions. The lightning strikes flashed, and in just a few breaths of time, the iceberg was struck by countless lightning balls. The iceberg was smashed into pieces and spattered everywhere. Even unfettered scholar was moved at this, inwardly exclaiming, "The heavenly tribulation is heavenly star lightning, tyrannical and sharp. The earthly calamity is the earth ghost lightning, underhanded and explosive." These two great lightning tribulations are called the twin lightnings of heaven and earth. Their power is increased further when they combine. Even I have to worry if I face them. The twin lightning of heaven and earth combined. One fell from above while the other exploded from below. The lightning was dazzling, forming a purgatory filled with the sound of thunder. Countless bolts of lightning, densely packed together, combined into a huge lightning forest. The shattered ice pieces were completely destroyed. Even the remaining traces of frost energy were extinguished. The scene, as if part of the world was ending, caused the observing demonic Pathgu immortals to hold their breaths in and feel stifled. Inside the ruined bat's corpse mountain, Old Lord Kenyang looked serious as he put all his effort in maintaining the immortal killer move, Final Afterglow. This ingenious defensive killer move was being used to its utmost to weaken the strength of the twin lightnings of heaven and earth. However, all of Old Lord Kenyang's effort only weakened the lightning by 15%. His red data mortal essence was being consumed extremely quickly, and soon, his forehead was covered in a thin layer of sweat. How could there be such a strong lightning tribulation? Dongfang Changfan's star will muttered with a worried expression. This was almost the worst-case scenario in his plan. He had not thought he would be faced with them at this moment. His luck really was extremely bad. The blood veil was being badly destroyed by the lightning strikes and explosions of thunder. The losses caused Dongfang Changfan to feel extreme heartache. These losses would greatly influence the foundation of Dongfang Yuliang's immortal aperture point. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. Time continued to pass, but the lightning tribulations from heaven and earth did not show any signs of weakening. Instead, they were constantly increasing in strength. The immemorial ruin bat's corpse was wrecked until it was beyond recognition. There were previously countless numbers of densely packed space path down marks covering the surroundings of the ruin bat, but now they were almost completely cleared up by the lightning tribulations. Old Lord Qin was already unable to support the situation, and the severe loss of immortal essence caused him to feel heavy, right? The power of the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity is beyond normal. It is all because of you. Dongfang Changfan. Old Lord Qin suddenly spoke. You are already dead, and according to the arrangement of fate, your soul should be returning to the door of life and death. How could you still remain here alive and kicking? Right now, you are not only trying to revive, you are even thinking of ascending to immortal. This is truly an act in defiance of heaven. No wonder heaven and earth are so enraged. When Dongfang Changfan's Starwell heard this, his grave expression changed. He raised his eyebrows and laughed. Ever since Red Lotus Demon Venerable broke fate, the destiny of all living beings in this world has been in their own hands. So what if it is in defiance to heaven? My fate is in my own hands. I have planned for so long. I made so many preparations. I will definitely succeed. He had just spoken when they heard a rumbling sound. The lightning strikes were already as dense as rain, and the thunder was already resounding nonstop. The thunder at this moment was beyond that of the previous ones. Its sound resounded through the skies and caused everyone's ears to buzz. Dongfang Changfan's Starwell shook and dispersed at once. A dazzling white light filled the world. Fang Yuan, unfettered scholar, and the remaining demonic Pathgu immortals all retreated in alarm, and even old Lord Qin had to tightly close his eyes. From the white light, a ray of divine lightning struck down. This divine lightning was incomparably fierce. Sweeping past all obstacles, in an instant, it blew up final afterglow, broke the blood veil, and directly struck at Dongfang Yuliang. The divine lightning was extremely fast, and almost the blink of an eye, it had broken through all the barriers like they were rotten wood and appeared in front of Dongfang Yuliang. Dongfang Yuliang only had a mortal body and would definitely be shattered to pieces if he really was struck by this lightning. Dongfang Changfan's possession plan would come to an end, resulting in complete failure. At the moment between life and death, Dongfang Yuliang, whose eyes were tightly closed the whole time, suddenly opened his eyes. In the dazzling white light, he barely managed to see that ray of thunder and lightning. Intense startled anger rose up inside him. Fluctuating light. Falling star lightning. Tribulations hidden inside my original tribulation. Accursed heaven. You want me to die so badly? Then I refuse to die. Dongfang Changfan roared in his mind. The phantom formation started to give off bright radiance. Boom. A piercing explosion resounded. Endless rays of white light shot out from the ruined bat's corpse. The light rays swept through some unlucky demonic Pathgu immortals. Immediately, their minds and souls shook, and some even directly crashed down from the sky. The terrifying explosion created a huge shock wave that lifted all the vegetation in the surroundings. The sky seemed to be collapsing while the earth quaked. The demonic Pathgu immortals retreated in panic. They retreated several kilometers before the wild light rays gradually dispersed. Only then did the Gu immortals calm down, returning. There was nothing left of the enormous, lofty ruined bat's corpse mountain. In the air above, a young figure appeared, standing proudly as he looked at Fang Yuan and the others. Dongfang Yuliang. Chapter 793. Myriad Star Fireflies versus Band of Experts. Dongfang Yuliang? Am I seeing wrongly? How did he become a Gu immortal? It seems that this heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity was caused by him. Becoming an immortal on the spot. Was that Dongfang Changfan's inheritance? Sigh, a mortal actually snatched it. The demonic Pathgu immortals saw Dongfang Changfan and were very shocked. They felt some dejection and sadness. Dongfang Yuliang was expressionless. There was no pupils or whites in his eyes. They were completely shining with many different colored crystalline lights, flickering continuously. He had this gaze while observing the demonic Pathgu immortals around him, saying softly, "You are the people who want to snatch my master's inheritance? What gives you the guts to attack a righteous path superforce?" After Dongfang Changfan succeeded in his possession, but he did not expose the truth, he still spoke as if he was Dongfang Yuliang. With his voice, the demonic Pathgu immortals were in a dejected state, filled with great grievance. Now that they heard Dongfang Yuliang's arrogant words, their faces turned ugly. Some scoffed while others shouted, "Ymir Jr., you have just become an immortal. After ascending in one step, you are arrogant. Here, take my hammer." As he said so, a figure flew out from among the crowd. This demonic Pathgu immortal had broad shoulders and a thick waist. There was a flying heavenly boar underneath him. Its fat legs were running quickly. As it carried its owner towards Dongfang Yuliang in an imposing manner, Daiti was Zhuozhan. The immortals jolted, reacting to what had happened. This Zhuozhan is so crafty, he is trying to pick up a bargain. We were almost deterred by the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity, but even if Dongfang Yuliang became an immortal, he is a newbie. What is there to be afraid of? Capture Dongfang Yuliang alive, and interrogate the wisdom path inheritance from him. The demonic Pathgu immortals moved quickly, charging towards Dongfang Yuliang, fearing that they would be left behind. Unfettered Scholar was among them. Only Fang Yuan and a few other people did not move. They remained in their places. He did not know that Dongfang Yuliang's body was already possessed by Dongfang Changfan, but he was wary of Old Lord Kenyang. Dongfang Yuliang appeared. But where is Old Lord Kenyang? Old Lord Kenyang was actually standing behind Dongfang Yuliang, but he used an immortal technique and concealed himself. His method was superb. None of the demonic path immortals sensed him, but he was quite injured. Seeing the immortals charging over, he transmitted to Dongfang Yuliang, "Do you need my help?" Dongfang Yuliang quickly rejected him. "You do not need to do anything. Let me deal with them." Once Old Lord Kenyang attacked, if he was exposed, Northern Plains Gu immortals would realize that Dongfang Yuliang was colluding with Central Continent's forces. By then, not only would Dongfang Yuliang get ostracized by the righteous path, even the demonic path would not welcome him. In addition, Dongfang Yuliang wanted to single-handedly showcase a heavy crippling of his enemies. That was the only way he could rise up after the death of 8 Dongfang tribe Gu immortals, to allow Dongfang tribe to once again become a force to be reckoned with. Zhuozhan led the way. He was getting closer. Dongfang Yuliang could see the sinister smile on his face. Behind him, more than 10 demonic Pathgu immortals were charging with killing intent. Dongfang Yuliang was all alone. His cultivation level was only at the bottom of rank 6, but he was neither flustered nor scared. His lips curled up. He showed a mild smile as if he was in complete control of the situation. Old Lord Kenyang, who was behind him, looked on with much curiosity. He wanted to see how he could repel his foes with his current cultivation level, only to see that Dongfang Yuliang raised his right arm. His white sleeves were pulled back as his right index finger pointed at the sky. He spoke loudly and leisurely, word by word. "Myriad, star, fireflies." The immortals heard this, and their advancement halted. Their expressions changed. Myriad star fireflies was well known in the world of Northern Plains Gu immortals. It was Dongfang Changfan's strongest killer move. Dongfang Changfan was known as the #1 wisdom path Gu immortal in Northern Plains. That was not just because of his deductions alone. There was also his battle strength. Without stunning battle strength, how could he stand firm in the turbulent Northern Plains? Without immense power, how could he lead Dongfang tribe on the road to success? Thus, in terms of battle strength, Dongfang Changfan easily surpassed Pai Shui Han, an unfettered scholar during his life. After all, he was the first supreme elder of a righteous path superforce. The wisdom path killer move, Myriad Star Fireflies, was the greatest display of Dongfang Changfan's battle strength. This move was extremely famous. It was ingrained into the hearts of Northern Plains Gu immortals. Don't listen to his bluff. Myriad Star Fireflies involves tens of thousands of Gu worms. Can it be activated so easily? Zhuozhan shouted. He is just a newbie Gu immortal. He has just ascended and gone beyond the mortal stage. How can he manipulate so many Gu worms immediately? Lu Qingming snickered. Wishful thinking. Divine Lord Tian Du held his immortal Gu as he prepared to strike. Humph. Myriad Star Fireflies. I lost to that move back then. I wonder how much of its power you can use. Unfettered Scholar's expression flashed with rage. Are we really doing nothing? He Lulan's heart was pounding in excitement, but Fang Yuan was a great strength amongst them. After He Lulan lost self-strength immortal Gu, her battle strength was weaker than before. Wait a while longer, the situation is not right. Fang Yuan wanted to speak of what he had found out earlier, but the sky suddenly changed. Earlier, the clouds had dispersed, the surroundings were entirely clear skies. But now, darkness descended as the world turned dim. Darkness surrounded the surroundings. Countless firefly-like spots of light appeared in the sky, dancing as they moved around. Starlight burst out. It was a brilliant and dazzling sight. Myriad star fireflies. The demonic path Gu immortals' expressions changed. They shouted as they fell into the midst of the star fireflies. Starlight was glowing and reflected on their faces. Unfettered Scholar's expression was pale. This was truly myriad star fireflies. It seemed even stronger than in his memories. But how could this be possible? Dongfang Yuliang had just become an immortal, right? Even if he had Dongfang Changfan's star will, and could use rank 7 red date immortal essence left behind by Dongfang Changfan. This was the first time he was activating myriad star fireflies. How could he be so familiar with it? Like he had practiced it 1,000 times. Unfettered Scholar could not understand it. The Gu immortals around him were in a more pathetic state. The surrounding specks of starlight were attacking them from all directions. Point 1 starlight speck was not powerful, but with tens of thousands of starlight specks, hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of starlight spots, especially when each of the starlight specks had a star thought in them. Even if the Gu immortals destroyed the starlight specks, the star thoughts would come out and force their way into the Gu immortals' minds. Even if the Gu immortals had defensive methods, the starlight specks were endless and nearly unlimited in numbers. They were bound to fail eventually. Once star thoughts find an opportunity and enter their minds, that would be dangerous. The least they could do was to disrupt one's thoughts. The worst they could do was to destroy the person's thoughts, causing them to become slow-witted, or if all the thoughts in their mind were star thoughts, they would be subdued completely. The star thoughts would replace their cognition, and the Gu immortal would become Dongfang Yuliang's puppet, manipulated at will. What are you doing? Beside Zhuozhan, a demonic path Gu immortal shouted angrily. Zhuozhan's face was turning purplish red. Sorry, my attack changed directions all of a sudden. With your ability, you want to snatch the wisdom path inheritance? In such a short time, you already got invaded by the star thoughts. You are really more of a trouble than help. The demonic path Gu immortal was nearly hit. He was extremely angry. What did you say? Do you dare to say it again? Zhuozhan was furious too. He shouted at the demonic path Gu immortal. Enough? Are you still fighting amongst yourselves? The important thing now is to escape. This is myriad star fireflies. The longer we stay here, the more dangerous it is. A Gu immortal said anxiously. Another Gu immortal immediately rebuked. Escape? What are you afraid of? He is only a bottom-tier rank 6 Gu immortal. We have so many people. And Lord Unfettered Scholar, why are you afraid to this extent? In my opinion, we should just attack. Everyone was hesitant on whether to retreat or advance. They subconsciously looked towards Unfettered Scholar. Pai Shui Han had already escaped. Fang Yuan was far away. Unfettered Scholar was the only rank 7 battle strength here. He was their shepherd. It was not that everyone acknowledged Unfettered Scholar as the leader, but in times of difficulty, the strong would handle the greater dangers. Unfettered Scholar was their strong person. By moving alongside an expert, they would have a greater chance of surviving. Unfettered Scholar himself was hesitant that he and Dongfang Changfan had fought before. Back then, he lost to this move, myriad star fireflies. After losing in battle, he learned from his painful lesson, focusing more attention on information regarding Dongfang Changfan. Thus, his understanding of myriad star fireflies was much deeper than that of other people. He knew that myriad star fireflies was a wisdom path killer move. It had immense power and was created by Dongfang Changfan single-handedly. The weakness of this move was hard to discover at the moment. Unfettered Scholar only knew this. Once a person enters the range of this move, they would be plotted against. Each of the Gu immortals' thoughts could produce star thoughts. These star thoughts were formed by myriad star fireflies to turn into starlight specks, attacking the Gu immortal. During an intense battle, Gu immortals would have to consider many things. As their minds worked rapidly, they would create more star thoughts. The more star thoughts produced, the stronger the killer move becomes, especially when there are more Gu immortals in the range. The star thoughts produced would be even greater. When the star thoughts completely took over the Gu immortals' minds, they would turn into Dongfang Yuliang's puppets, fighting for him. Even if it could not reach that stage, being influenced by the star thoughts, mistakes would occur. Like earlier, when Zhuozhan almost injured an ally. Thus, myriad star fireflies was a move well suited to deal with multiple enemies. It was weaker when fighting one enemy. Against more people, they would be used to restrain each other. The battle might instead be easier to win. The reason Dongfang Changfan created this move was because he had tried to develop Dongfang tribe single-handedly. Without many Gu immortals in his tribe to help him, he often had to fight many enemies alone. But after Dongfang Changfan created this move, he no longer feared group fights. The current scenario is what Dongfang Yuliang most wants to see. We have many people and are not united. Everyone is wary of each other, and we have barely any elites. I am the only rank 7. In a fight, we will become hindrances to each other. Not only that, from the battle earlier, there also seems to be a fire path Gu immortal hiding here. Unfettered Scholar thought rapidly in his mind. Starlight specks appeared around him. He had much more of them compared to other people. Given such concerns, Unfettered Scholar did not feel like retreating. Instead, his battle intent was roused. I lost to Dongfang Changfan. That was the greatest humiliation in my life. Now that I am facing his successor, if I retreat, how will I face myself afterwards? Even if they have a hidden Gu immortal, we also have many people. If I retreat instead of fighting, which Gu immortal in Northern Plains would look up to me in the future? Chapter 794. Internal Threat, Chaotic Battle, Advance or Retreat. After making his decision, Unfettered Scholar's vigor rose, and he shouted, "Fight! The enemy is merely one person. Anyone who is afraid can leave. All right, we will follow Lord. Truly worthy of Lord Unfettered Scholar, with you here, who would fear Dongfang Yuliang?" The group of demons shouted. Unfettered Scholar flicked his sleeve and used his killer move, clearing up the lingering starlight around him as he charged towards Dongfang Yuliang. Come. Dongfang Yuliang was not in the least afraid of Unfettered Scholar's rank 7 power. He did not retreat but advanced, submerged in starlight. For a while, the starlight churned as if it were a sea of stars, surging and rolling unendingly. Dongfang Yuliang was like the master of stars as he maneuvered the endless starlight, raising majestic waves of stars to fight against a group by himself. Stars swayed and light fragments flew everywhere. Dongfang Yuliang was hopelessly outnumbered at first, and the situation was dangerous. But as time passed, the starlight continued to increase rapidly, almost filling the whole space. The starlight obscured vision and made cooperation difficult, while the star thoughts invaded minds, causing the demonic path Gu immortals to make repeated mistakes. As the situation turned more chaotic, Dongfang Yuliang's advantage was getting bigger. Many Gu immortals were accidentally injured several times. Gradually, they did not dare to team up, choosing to fight alone, which further reduced the pressure on Dongfang Yuliang. Only Unfettered Scholar was able to maneuver skillfully around the obstacles, and was the strongest opponent of Dongfang Yuliang. Dongfang Yuliang had been evading him since the start, not daring to fight head-on with Unfettered Scholar. Unfettered Scholar's fury surged as he got repeatedly obstructed by other demonic path Gu immortals. This Dongfang Yuliang is too slippery. He is so young, but he's as cunning as Dongfang Changfan back then. He is showing no flaws, as if he has been manipulating this killer move since birth. Is Dongfang Changfan's inheritance so magical? Not far away, old Lord Kenyang was also inwardly shocked by the might of myriad star fireflies. He remained hidden the whole time, quietly healing himself. Occasionally, he would gaze eerily at Fang Yuan and the group at the edge of the battlefield. He had vague speculations about Fang Yuan's identity and had been waiting for Fang Yuan to jump into the battlefield. He did not excel in pursuing enemies. But with the help of myriad star fireflies, he would have a greatly increased chance of capturing Fang Yuan. However, since the beginning, Fang Yuan only stood by, looking on without lifting a finger, which caused old Lord Kenyang to feel anxious and forced him to endure waiting patiently. Immortal killer move, 1000 disintegrations. Unfettered Scholar could not fight a prolonged battle, finally using his trump card killer move. Fang Yuan chuckled, already on guard against this move. His body swayed nimbly like a butterfly, dodging the rays coming from the gaze. But right at this moment, Fang Yuan suddenly stopped. Fang Yuan's furious roar resounded within him. "Old scoundrel, I will take you down with me." Fang Yuan suddenly changed directions and charged straight towards the killer move Thousand Disintegrations. This change was beyond anyone's expectations. The power of Thousand Disintegrations was deeply imprinted in everyone's minds. Fang Yuan charging straight at it was simply suicidal. For a while, everyone was startled and could not react. Even Unfettered Scholar was stupefied as he looked at Fang Yuan charging at his killer move, the Light of Thousand. Disintegration shined on Fang Yuan's head. In an instant, Fang Yuan's hair was destroyed, then his skull was melting, with the rays about to hit his brain. On this boundary between life and death, Old Lord Qin shouted, and with no time to continue healing, he showed himself to save Fang Yuan. He attacked while also defending. Flame surged. A blazing inferno rose and charged towards Unfettered Scholar. Confronted with a rank 7 expert, Unfettered Scholar had no choice but to divide his attention. As this happened, Old Lord Qin was able to pull back Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's skull was penetrated through and his brain almost suffered extremely severe damage. At this moment, countless star thoughts surged like a fountain towards the outside through the hole in the skull. After being saved by Old Lord Qin, Fang Yuan's expression turned calm, representing that Fang Changfan's soul had regained control of the body. Lingering fear unavoidably showed up on his face. If there had been just a slight delay, Fang Yuan's brain would have been entirely disintegrated. Fang Changfan could be said to have walked around the gates of hell, barely holding on to life. And without Old Lord Qin, he might have died again. What happened? Old Lord Qin retreated while pulling Fang Changfan and shouted at the latter, his heart still palpitating. Fang Changfan had explained most of the possession technique to him, but a few crucial final steps were still kept undisclosed by Fang Changfan. Thus, Old Lord Qin was absolutely not willing to see Fang Changfan's death. Fang Changfan intentionally held these back as a failsafe against Old Lord Qin. The effects were shown now. However, he might have had his life preserved, but Fang Changfan looked pale and had an unsightly expression. This series of events was because he had hurriedly ascended to immortal and were the side effects of the struggle against the lightning tribulation. Originally, Fang Changfan had deceived Fang tribe's 8 Gu immortals and used the Phantom formation to extract their immortal aperture origin cores, but these cores contained the wills and auras of the 8 Gu immortals and could not be directly transferred to Fang Yuan's body. Thus, Fang Changfan used Mincy's blood immortal Gu to turn these origin cores into a blood veil. Then he used the attacks from the demonic path Gu immortals to temper and remove the impurities that were the wills and auras of the 8 Gu immortals. Fang Changfan then would transfer the purified immortal aperture origin cores into Fang Yuan's body, which should have resulted in no side effects. However, the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity had been too terrifying, far surpassing Fang Changfan's estimation. It resulted in a dangerous situation and at the crucial moment between life and death. Fang Changfan had no choice but to skip some of the blood veil's tempering steps and directly transfer the extracted origin cores into Fang Yuan's body. He passed the tribulation and advanced to Gu Immortal. But the new immortal aperture had the 8 Gu Immortals' wills and was filled with their auras. These 8 Gu Immortals' bodies and souls were already turned to nothingness prior to the heaven-shaking tribulation. But they were betrayed, creating hatred towards Fang Changfan, which was retained in their wills and auras. Fang Changfan had to pay full attention to the battle when fighting Unfettered Scholar. A moment of negligence caused the internal danger to erupt, resulting in a strong backlash. Fang Changfan had expected it, but during the backlash, he discovered his previous estimations had been too optimistic. The power of the accumulated wills in his immortal aperture was beyond his expectations. Thus, the backlash had almost sent him to his own death under 1,000 disintegrations. Fang Changfan heaved a sigh and was just about to explain matters to Old Lord Qin when suddenly his face twisted into a ferocious expression. Old Lord Qin's mind rang with warning sirens and he quickly released his grip as he retreated. The next moment, Fang Yuan used a powerful killer move against his benefactor, Old Lord Qin. Fortunately, Old Lord Qin Yang had been vigilant. Dongfang Yu Yang's attack struck empty air. Old bastard Chang Fan, you shameless scoundrel, scheming against your own tribe's Gu immortals for your rebirth. Dongfang Yu Liang furiously shouted, but it was not with his previous voice. Rather, it was the voice of Dongfang Yi Kong. Such a strange change confused everyone. Unfettered Scholar's eyes shined with a bright light and moved in for the kill again. He reacted promptly and used the killer move Thousand Disintegrations, again directed at Dongfang Yu Liang. However, Dongfang Chang Fan regained control again and narrowly evaded Thousand Disintegrations. The good scenario did not last for long as soon. The will of another of Dongfang tribe's Gu immortals forcibly took control of the body, shouting and seeking death of their own accord. Old Lord Qin Yang had no choice but to save Dongfang Chang Fan from danger again. The battle situation had changed. The orderly myriad star fireflies which attacked and defended in turn were now flying around chaotically. The pressure on the demonic path Gu immortals had greatly decreased, and they charged towards Dongfang Yu Liang one after the other. Among them, the threat from Unfettered Scholar was the largest, as he moved unhindered around the sea of starlight. His Thousand Disintegrations breaking through all obstacles. Dongfang Changfan, however, had the help of Old Lord Qin Yang. Old Lord Qin Yang was an expert of Central Continent's ancient sects and had deep foundations. His immortal killer move, life-chasing fire, was also rather troublesome, obstructing Unfettered Scholar. Dongfang Yu Liang would occasionally suffer the backlash from a certain Dongfang tribe Gu immortal, at times causing him to attack Old Lord Qin Yang or even seek death, but at other times Dongfang Changfan was able to regain control and fight the demonic path Gu immortals, attempting to remedy the situation. However, all things considered, such a battle situation could not avoid being chaotic. The source of the chaos was Dongfang Yu Liang. What is going on? Fairy Li Shan and the others were standing at the edge of the battlefield, not knowing what to think about this chaotic fight. The strange and confusing situation was beyond their expectations. It seems Dongfang Changfan sacrificed his tribe's Gu immortals and possessed Dongfang Yu Yang, but his plan did not completely succeed. This old bastard really can scheme. He Lu Lan sneered. No matter who Dongfang Yu Yang is, that fire path Gu immortal beside him is not of Northern Plains, but an expert of Central Continent's immortal crane sect, named Old Lord Qin Yang. After the battle earlier, he is probably suspicious of me. Fang Yuan secretly transmitted his voice, exposing the identity of Old Lord Qin Yang. What? This is troublesome. He Lulan frowned. She and Fang Yuan were tied to the same boat. Their gains and losses were linked together. If Fang Yuan was exposed, she would also be in jeopardy. What should we do now? Perhaps we could kill him. Fairy Li Shan was ready to attack. No. He only has some doubts. As long as I don't expose myself, he won't be able to guess my identity in Central Continent. The battle is extremely chaotic now. It will be hard for us to withdraw if we meddle in. Moreover, Dongfang Changfan is a deep schemer. Myriad Star Fireflies is also powerful, while we will have to restrain our full power to hide our identities. What's more, Old Lord Qin Yang is an expert among rank 7s and won't be easily defeated. Fang Yuan's gaze flickered as he sent this message to the two women. He already had the intention to retreat. The situation might be in disorder now, but their circumstances did not allow them to do as they pleased. Even if they could use their full strengths, the combined strength of the three was not enough to dominate the whole battlefield and control the lives and deaths of everyone present. You mean that we should retreat? He Lulan, however, was reluctant. As far as she was concerned, the chaotic situation in front of them was still an opportunity. She had sworn to get revenge, but He Qing was powerful and her battle strength had decreased after she had also lost self-strength immortal Gu. If she did not use these opportunities to quickly progress ahead, when would she be able to take her revenge? Fang Yuan smiled. I mean that we should retreat as well as advance. Haven't the two of you discovered that Dongfang Yu Liang has already lost control over a dozen times in just this short period of time? All in all, it should be due to the wills of the 8 Gu immortals causing trouble. You mean? He Lulan and Fairy Li Shan's gazes shined brightly as they understood the meaning behind these words. Right? How many Gu immortals does Dongfang tribe has? Even if there is some hidden force left behind, Dongfang tribe's headquarters would still be at its weakest state in all time. Just think about it. The accumulations of a region's superforce. Fang Yuan spoke leisurely, however his words ignited the fires in the hearts of He Lulan and Fairy Li Shan. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Let's rob Dongfang Changfan's base. He Lulan did not hesitate as she flew straight towards Dongfang tribe's headquarters with excitement. Chapter 795, arriving first, but without success. Jade Pool Blessed Land, Dongfang tribe's main headquarters, Dongfang Chongfan's home. It had a long history of thousands of years. This type of blessed land was different from ordinary blessed lands. Ordinary blessed lands were a Gu Immortal's immortal aperture. They belonged to one person. Once their cultivation level reaches rank 8, the immortal aperture would become a grotto heaven. Meanwhile, Jade Pool Blessed Land did not belong to one Gu Immortal. It was formed from a group of Gu Immortals cutting off a part of their own blessed lands, and was pieced together after that. Blessed lands could swallow each other. Earlier, on Tianti Mountain, Fang Yuan was undergoing the earthly calamity of the desolate beast swamp crab. He had to discard a portion of his blessed land. In the end, this part was taken away by the demonic path Gu Immortals on Tianti Mountain, fusing it into their own blessed lands. The swallowing of blessed lands had very strict requirements. But the requirements of piecing blessed lands together were much lower. Most of the super forces in the 5 regions had a main camp that was formed by piecing together the contributions of various Gu Immortals. Dongfang tribe's Jade Pool Blessed Land, Murong tribe's Yinyang Blessed Land, Guan tribe's Shi Huang Blessed Land, and He tribe's Iron Eagle Blessed Land all were like this. Even Northern Plains number 1 demonic path force, Snowy Mountain Blessed Land, was the same, the demonic path. Gu Immortals contributed a portion of their blessed lands, creating Snowy Mountain Blessed Land. They then lived in it. The mountain peaks that they each occupied was the region that they took out from their own immortal apertures. The owner of the first peak, Old Ancestor Shuehu, had his own rank 8 grotto heaven. Fairy Lishan, who was the owner of the third peak, also had her own immortal aperture. The Gu Immortal's personal immortal aperture was extremely important. There were countless treasures placed in them. It was a private area. In most situations, outsiders would not be allowed in. If there was any damage done, the losses were severe. Regarding this, there was also a rather peculiar example. It was Zombie Alliance. The members of Zombie Alliance were immortal zombies. Since the immortal zombies' immortal apertures were dead, a portion of the aperture would break apart once in a while, and they furthermore could not be fused together. Therefore, in each of the 5 regions, the headquarters of Zombie Alliance did not form from immortal apertures. For example, Northern Plains Zombie Alliance's headquarters was Dark Flow Giant City. Such a headquarters was naturally inferior to a blessed land. This was another reason why Zombie Alliance's branches were weaker than super forces. Thus, to Fang Yuan and the others, Jade Pool Blessed Land was not hard to find. Blessed lands that were pieced together like this were usually placed on the ground, taking in earth chi to stabilize the space inside. At the same time, they could slow time flow and postpone the arrival of heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities. I know the location of this Jade Pool Blessed Land clearly. If it was not moved away, it should be to the northeast. Let's fly over there. At this speed, it would only take an hour. Fairy Lishan led the way. It should still be at the original place. The main camp of such a superforce is very important. It is the central point used between superforces when splitting up their respective territories. It would not be moved under normal circumstances. He Lulan was excited. Dongfang Chongfan miscalculated this time. He actually removed his own manpower, sacrificing Dongfang tribe's Gu Immortals to revive himself. Fang Yuan followed behind the 2 women without speaking to as they flew rapidly. Huge winds were blowing, causing buzzing noises around the ears. Fang Yuan's memories of his previous life began to surface in his mind. In his previous life, he knew very little about Dongfang Chongfan. He had no idea whether Dongfang Chongfan succeeded in possessing Dongfang Yuliang's body in his previous life. But he knew at least that Dongfang Yuliang was only a rank 5 Gu master for a long time. At that time, Imperial Court Blessed Land was not destroyed. After He Lulan won and came out from Imperial Court Blessed Land, she tried to overturn and change the current rules, dying suddenly one day. Eventually, Ma Hongyun stepped up on the stage. After that, he led his army and became the lord of the Imperial Court for many rounds. During the 3rd Imperial Court contest, he was suppressed by 3 hearts combination soul and was captured by Dongfang tribe alive. In the end, Ma Hongyun's luck was overwhelming. He actually got Dongfang Yuliang's sister, Dongfang Qingyu, on his side. Not only did she free him, she also gave him the secret of three hearts combination soul, allowing Ma Hongyun to emerge victorious, and Dongfang tribe lost terribly. Fang Yuan thought about this, and he inwardly came to a realization. He had a different view now. If, in my previous life, Dongfang Changfan managed to possess Dongfang Yuliang, then Dongfang Qingyu was doing this not because of Ma Hongyun, but because she found out something and wanted to avenge her brother. After all, Dongfang Yuliang and Dongfang Qingyu were siblings that had mutually supported and stuck close by each other since they were young. No matter how Dongfang Changfan acted, after a long time, he would definitely mess up in front of such a close relation. Or maybe Dongfang Changfan failed in his possession. Or maybe he succeeded, but the effect was not great. Dongfang Yuliang was still a mortal Gu master. Fang Yuan guessed. Ever since he destroyed 88 True Yang building, along with Imperial Court Blessed Land, the events in Northern Plains had changed hugely. Just at minimum, in his previous life, Dongfang tribe's Gu immortals like Dongfang Yikong and Dongfang Wanxiu were still alive, but now they were sacrificed. Such huge changes had also affected Central Continent's events. They were changing rapidly. Central Continent was the center of the 5 regions. One could predict that in future developments, the other 3 regions would also be affected to an extent. The advantage of my rebirth is becoming smaller. Fang Yuan sighed inwardly. As he got stronger, the influence that he was creating also increased. It was called the butterfly effect, but Fang Yuan was already no longer a butterfly. He was an eagle. An hour later, they arrived at Jade Pool Blessed Land. The situation in front of them was slightly out of their expectations. Jade Pool Blessed Land was an independent small world. When its entrance was closed, it could not be seen with the naked eye. But now, there was a huge hole in it. One could see the situation inside the Blessed Land from outside. At the same time, there were loud explosions. Sounds of fighting could be heard. There was someone who got here first. Hey, Lu Lan's gaze focused. Judging by this, they have just created a hole and entered. I had made an agreement with Dongfang Changfan. I cannot attack Dongfang tribe, Fairy Li Shan said. Fang Yuan would thus be the core battle strength amongst the 3. He walked in front and shouted, "Let's go in and see." The 3 entered the hole and got into Jade Pool Blessed Land, only to see that there was a huge battle in the Blessed Land. Several demonic path Gu immortals were fighting with the desolate beasts and ancient desolate beasts that were guarding the Blessed Land. It was an intense fight. It seems that our timing is just right. Hey, Lu Lan's mood relaxed, but her tone sank immediately after. It is Pai Shui Han. As it turned out, after Pai Shui Han was hit by old Lord King Yang's life-chasing fire, he could not dispel it. Afraid that others would attack him, he had no choice but to escape. As he escaped, he gradually calmed down. He found out in surprise that his clothes were still intact even with the fire burning. Pai Shui Han had an idea. After thinking about it, he realized this life-chasing fire could only burn something with life force. His clothes were not alive, thus they were not harmed. Meanwhile, he had been using healing killer moves. They made his life force even greater, causing the fire to burn more intensely. After finding this out, Pai Shui Han changed his tactics. He restrained most of the life force in his body, finally extinguishing the life-chasing fire. After getting rid of this threat, he turned around and wanted to go back to Tai Chiu battlefield. On the way back, he met a few rank 6 demonic path Gu immortals who had left stealthily and were trying to take advantage of his situation. Pai Shui Han was an astute person. Seeing that these few people were tailing him secretly, he understood their intentions. Anger surged in him as he taught them a lesson. The demonic path Gu immortals worked together, but they were not the rank 7 Pai Shui Han's match. When Pai Shui Han had been venting, the sound of the battle drew in 2 rank 6 peak Gu immortals. They were Xie Shermin of the Enslavement Path and Half Moon Brutemaster of the Moon Path. These 2 had pretty good relationships with a certain demonic path Gu immortal. They intervened and mediated the situation. They also convinced Pai Shui Han to not go back to Tai Chiu, that he should instead go to Dongfang tribe's main camp. Pai Shui Han was wary of the life-chasing fire already. Next, he heard that Half Moon Brutemaster had an immortal Gu that could easily pierce space, and could enter Jade Pool Blessed Land. Pai Shuihan thought about Unfettered Scholar and Fang Yuan's group with their mysterious depths. He also thought about the Wisdom Path inheritance. Even if he got it, it would be incomplete and have low value. It would be of little use to him. Thus, he decided to change his plans, to attack Jade Pool Blessed Land with the other demonic path Gu Immortals Ikati Jade Pool Blessed Land. Half Moon Brutemaster used his method and truly formed a pathway to enter. Everyone charged in, thinking of simply reaping some profits before leaving. But they found out that there were no Gu Immortals obstructing them. And just as they were fighting with the desolate beasts protecting the blessed land, Fang Yuan and the others appeared. Seeing that the 3 black-robed Gu Immortals were also here to loot the place, the nearby enslavement path Gu Immortal Xie Shermin made a move. He willed, and 3 huge desolate beast birds flew out from his immortal aperture, encircling them. Who are you? I spent so much effort in creating this hole. Are you here to simply take advantage of this? Half Moon Brutemaster shouted. He waved his arm and his killer move was unleashed. Pai Shuihan saw Fang Yuan and his pupils shrunk. He felt a faint headache. It's the 3 of them. Why did they come here too? He knew Fang Yuan's strength, but he still found some time to attack him. These people had made an agreement earlier before entering. If anyone else enters after them, they would attack together and defend their interests. But Pai Shuihan's attacks were slightly slower. Even though his attacks looked powerful, he had reserved most of his strength. If the situation turned bad, he could retreat at any time. As for the other demonic path Gu Immortals, the moment they saw Fang Yuan, they sucked in breaths of cold air. Pai Shuihan had confidence from his cultivation level. But why would these people dare to attack and implicate themselves? Thus, they disregarded the earlier agreement. They acted like they were obstructed by the desolate beasts and could not find time or energy to attack. Come. Fang Yuan laughed sinisterly. 5 strength path, giant hands flew out. 3 strength path, giant hands suddenly grabbed the desolate beast birds. The birds cried out in pain from their forced as for the other 2. They destroyed Half Moon Brutemaster and Pai Shuihan's attacks effortlessly. Xie Shermin and Half Moon Brutemaster did not know about him. They saw this and were extremely shocked. Rank 7 battle strength. Where is this expert from? Fang Yuan forced them back. He laughed even more wildly. 2 more giant hands flew out, along with 2 others formed earlier. A total of 4 hands flew towards Pai Shui, but the same time. He shouted. Pai Shuihan, to think that you came here as well. It seems that the lesson earlier was not enough for you. Saying this, he demonstrated an extremely arrogant and proud attitude, like he had already fought with Pai Shuihan and taught him a lesson. Xie Shermin and Half Moon Brutemaster heard this, and their hearts shook. Their fighting spirit immediately fell.